Hi guys. Um, Welcome to another DYP session. So I think we'll just give it like 5 minutes to allow more people to join before we start proper. So in the meantime, you can just chill and yeah. We start in about 5 minutes proper.
Okay, that's fine.
Just for those that just joined, I think Dio just joined. Dio, we are stalling. We're just giving everyone 2 minutes. So our hosts are on standby and ready, and we'll be good to go shortly. Yeah. Hmm. Why do I feel like I know this name from somewhere? Pelumi, can we get started?
Yes.
Yeah, I think we
But
should.
okay. So good evening, everyone. Maybe some people might be in other time zone. So good afternoon or good morning. um, so we are. This is like this is going to be like the first of the series for Webflow. So we're doing an introduction this today. My name is Pelumi Abimbola. I am a product designer. Um, Also with me to co-host this webinar is Isaac. Isaac, can you introduce yourself?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Isaac. Great to be here.
Yeah. Sorry guys, give me a minute.
Isaac, are you a mechanic or well, I don't know. I don't know you before.
Oh, okay. Sorry. My name is Isaac. I am a product designer, and um, I do front end, front end when it's convenient for me. But I'm primarily a product designer, and I've been using Webflow for a while, and I'm looking forward to having a really interesting session with everyone tonight.
Thank you, Isaac. Isaac, when you say for a while, what made you a product designer, touch Webflow? If you can
Uh,
share that experience so that we can relate with it.
Okay. I would say Webflow, I would say it was more like the hype around Webflow that made me go deep into it. Unlike many other product designers, I would say that I have a pretty decent experience with front end development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and the idea to really go deeper into Webflow and explore it came because it is easy to use, it is faster to use, and once you have the grasp of basic design tools like Figma, like Adobe XD, like Sketch, depending on what you use, I discovered that Webflow is kind of similar because it brings the same playground experience. By playground experience, I mean, the drag and drop experience. You want to create a rectangle, you have where to go. You want to create a section, you have where to go. You want to upload an image. It's kind of similar to where I'm coming from as a product designer. So Webflow does not require, it's a no-code tool. You don't need to know CSS, HTML. Just need to have understanding of how something works. And I think that if you are a designer, you already have an idea of how such tools work. So such tool work. So taking on Webflow was just like a straightforward thing for me. So it
Very
just
cool.
came naturally, and yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Came naturally. Pelumi, did your own also come naturally?
My it
So
wasn't
introduction first. Introduction before your experience with Webflow.
okay. Okay. So my name is Pelumi Abimbola. I am also a product designer. So Webflow for me, I started before, but like I don't know, it was so hard. There were like ups and downs, so I just dropped it for a long while. I picked it up again. So for me, it was more of like um, I wanted to see, I wanted to be able to build stuff that I design. It's it's a different feel when you design something and you like see it like in real life, like people are using it or that kind of stuff. Like it's in code, it's published, that kind of thing. So even when like I design stuff and then a developer codes it and stuff, that feeling after that, it's a whole, it's very very different. So that's why I decided to learn Webflow, because I mean I tried coding, but like it wasn't like really the stuff for me. So I played around with like Google Sites and stuff like that. So like I think the major thing that really pushed it for me, because I wanted to create my portfolio and I didn't want to use Notion. I didn't want to use all this just write it down and stuff. So I wanted to be like a website. So that's why that was like the main reason I like, okay, let me learn Webflow proper. I was like, oh, I can actually offer more value as a designer by helping people build websites and not only just design. So yeah, that was it for me. So to be able to just offer more value as a designer, that's like the main thing that um, actually like pushed me to like develop my skills in Webflow. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, yes, I think we can start proper. I think Isaac has given a bit of his own background. Isaac is actually he codes too, but he also does Webflow too. But me, I don't code, so I guess you can see like from both angles how Webflow is still a good choice, whether you're a developer or like maybe you know code or not. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. I was going to say you can proceed with with the
Okay. Okay. So basically, what's Webflow? I don't know. Has anyone here had any experience in aside the two of us? Has anybody here had any experience with Webflow? I think Opayemi, do you have any experience with Webflow? Have you heard about Webflow or anything like that before? Wait, my idea. Sunday, Concrete, have you had any experience with Webflow or Tawakalt? Anybody? Or have you heard about it? What have you heard about Webflow?
I haven't heard about it. I don't particularly have any experience with it. I've not tried
Okay.
to use it. Yeah.
Based on what you've heard, what do you think it is?
It's a low code tool
Yeah,
to
yeah,
build a site.
yeah. That mostly sums what Webflow is. So Webflow is a low code tool that it helps you build web experiences. It allows you design, build, and like launch them in a very visual way. So like Isaac said earlier, the interface is sort of like what you would have in Figma or in Sketch or in any other of these design tools that you'd have. So Webflow has made it in a way where you can visually interact with these components or elements that you would normally require a bunch of lines of codes to write and to like put everything together to work. So why Webflow? So in web design, you'd or in design generally, you normally have to design and then hand off to developers. And when you hand off to developers, there's always this back and forth. They tell you, okay, this is not actually this maybe this is not possible, or this is in code wise you have to do it this way, blah blah blah, and then so much back and forth. Development time increases, all those kind of things. So and then another problem too that happens in web design is responsiveness. Is like one of the biggest issues in web design. You find out some websites they look very good on web. If you check on your phone, everything the elements are scattered. You see the nav bar is one kind, some sections are one kind, and stuff like that. And then animations and stuff, very tricky. Most websites you will find that they don't put so much into animations. You find out some buttons they don't have any states. Some buttons don't have any state. You just have the base state. You don't have when you hover, nothing happens. When you click, nothing happens. There's no enhanced experience in all that. So all those issues are what Webflow came to solve. So like with Webflow now, it's more visual and like the visual experience and code, they are not separated. Like everything is together, and you can just easily you can see what you are building, and you can see how it will look like live. You can this thing there are stuff that you call CSS components, which in Figma, if it's similar to components in Figma, you can reuse them in so many ways. You can create animations and interactions without any single line of code. Like all you just have to do is set this, set that, bam. Once you play it, it starts working. You don't need to start styling anything in CSS or HTML or whatsoever. And then in terms of responsiveness, Webflow also makes it very easy. Desktop, tablet view, mobile view, landscape. It shows you how your design will look like in all those forms. And then you can always design in a responsive first approach. So all these things are what makes Webflow very these are like the advantages of using Webflow to create web experiences. So Isaac, do you have anything to add regarding like the whole background of Webflow and like why we
Yeah,
need it?
yeah, I think he covered everything. It is easier to use. Straight unlike and easier to learn, unlike if you want to, like you said, for example, when you joined, you were stumbling into Webflow because you want to create your profile, right? want to create a website for yourself, a portfolio rather. If you want to go that route, you probably, and you don't want to use Notion or use any of the pre-made templates, you have to go through you have to go through HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and even probably design first, before doing what you have to do. But with Webflow, it's kind of easier to use. You only need to go from your design and could start implementing whatever you have immediately. So Webflow just makes it easy. Yeah.
All right. So that pretty much sums everything about like why you should use Webflow, why Webflow is easy. As a designer, I feel like if you love web experiences, I feel like Webflow is the tool for you. Just grab it, and it has like a bit of a learning curve, but once you get started on it and you like practice and practice, you get a hang of it, and it's a really nice experience. So without further ado, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, Pelumi, I can see your screen. You're currently on your workspace. But how did you get to your workspace?
Okay, so let me just sign out. Okay, so this is Webflow's this is Webflow's landing page. Site you want with the dev time. So what you want to do is register, get started. So you register, or if you have an account, you log in. So I already have an account, so I will just sign in. So it's just the basic process of signing in or registering on any regular website. They're going to, if you are registering for the first time, going to ask you some questions like, why are you using Webflow? Are you a developer, or are you a product designer, or a manager, or whatever? Just basic questions to optimize your experience for them. So let me sign in. All right. So when you register, this is what you see. This is the dashboard for Webflow. Sorry. Okay, so this is the dashboard for Webflow. So this is where you see all your sites, all the sites that you've created. There's made in Webflow. This is where you see people's like work that they've done and they've posted on the community. You can check it out. Some of them are clonable. Clonable in the sense that you can just like in Figma, you can duplicate. Yeah, that's basically it. You can duplicate it into your own profile, and you can probably just look around how that person um, got about that kind of design or interaction, or how they build that website in general. Yeah. So and then yeah, designers, it just shows you people that are on Webflow that are designers and probably hire them and stuff like that. Yeah. And then here, Learn. This is Webflow's university. So they have a bunch of resources in they call it Webflow University, where you can learn how to use Webflow. So there are a variety of courses, Figma to Webflow, creating a portfolio, blah, blah, blah. So they have a bunch of courses which you can explore. Yeah, so back here, so we're going to go to our dashboard. So to create your website, so what you want to do is come here, new site. So then you can either choose to create a template or whatever, but we are going to just start from a blank canvas. So we select that. Let's just name it practice, and then create your site. So Webflow is going to set up the environment for you. So it's still loading. Sometimes it takes a bit of time. So yeah, it's almost done. So yeah, this is how Webflow looks like with basic keying. I'm sure you can see some similarities between what we have here and probably what you have in your design tool. I'm assuming a lot of us here are at least familiar with um, one or two design tools, or so to say. So you have where your main work is, you have a left section, you have a right section, and you have this here. So I'm going to hand over to my guy Isaac. So Isaac will walk us through some basic functionalities of Webflow, and then yeah, we'll wrap up after. So yeah, Isaac.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Please, can you let me share my screen? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Isaac, is it okay for me to ask? Like, could you possibly show us something you've done on Webflow?
Oh yeah, yes, sure. I can show my website, my portfolio. All right.
Bad
Let me
guy.
let's see. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to share my screen.
No, why you forget? Tell me about you. Have you done? Do you have any live projects out on Webflow?
Yeah, I do.
Cool. It would be nice to see some of these things so we can relate later, sure.
Yeah, sure. We'll share at the end of the class.
Okay. All right, please let me know you can see my screen.
We are seeing your Figma results.
Oh, sorry. So I'm trying to show us. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to show us what we do after this. Okay, so this is an example of what I've done in Webflow. This is my portfolio. Yeah. Pretty straightforward portfolio. I mean, and it's also like an example of everything you can do with Webflow, like
Big.
any interaction you can think of. Like, I mean, Webflow is there for you. Just imagine it, and Webflow is going to get it done for you. Yeah. So
All right, cool.
just
Thanks, Isaac.
all right. Yeah. So at the end of this to this introductory session, we'll be doing this very simple landing page. It won't take us long. And you just to give us an introduction of how simple or how straightforward Webflow can be in like building something like this. So this is what we'll be doing today at the end of the day. And for subsequent classes, we will go deeper into stuff like reusable components and the likes. But today, will just take us through the basics of Webflow and how you can do all of these simple things. So to start with, I have my dashboard here. So I'm going to click on a blank project because we want to start from scratch and show us the background into what Webflow is. So I'm going to name it here as design DYP playground. Okay, so that's my website. All right. As you can see, we have this blank canvas, and I'll just go through the different sections we have here. On my left, from my left here, start with the Webflow logo, where if you click on it, it takes us back to the dashboard, the project settings, where you can add fonts, where you can add like on some custom codes if you want, and the editor. After that, we have the background of Webflow itself. And this is where you can add section, can add container, can add grid, columns, buttons, and the likes. I'll go back to that later. I just want to do a quick run through of this interface. The second one, we have symbols. I mentioned something about reusable components the other time. When I mean reusable components, imagine you are trying to build a website and you have header. The header is where it's an example of header. Can you see this coin file logo where it's highlighted? As an example of an header, and you agree with me that if you are designing a website or if you want to have a website, you have the header across the different pages. You have it on the home, you have it on the contacts, you have it on the about us. So instead of building that every time you have a new page, instead of designing it, you have something like a component, a reusable component called symbols in Webflow that can only be, you can just build it once and you use it everywhere you go. So you can use it for something like buttons, something like your cards that you are going to use everywhere. And for designers here that are familiar with how this works, you also agree that this is a very important tool. Then we have the navigator that shows us different section, different parts of the pages where we are working on. We see that as we progress. Then we have the pages. So let's say you want to add a new page. By default, Webflow creates this, name this particular page for me as a home. So we can rename it. We can call it anything we want. We can create another page. We can do as much as we want. Then we have collections. We are not CMS collection. We are not for the purpose of this class. I just want us to exhaust what we have. This few the what I mentioned earlier. I just go through that before going into the rest. All right. After that, to my right hand side, you have we have different sections. We have display, we have flex, we have grid, we have padding, we have margin, we have size and width, we have positioning, we have typography where you can adjust your fonts, we have background, we have border. I will go into all of this as I start. And you can look at the top here, you can follow my mouse, you see different screen sizes. That's the advantage of Webflow. With this, you can easily change your screen size to see what your design will look like on smaller screens. And you know that in this age, when you are designing websites or designing websites, responsive it must be responsive. It is very, very important for SEO and for smaller screen users. Most people we assess there's a higher chance that most of the people that will be going to your website will see we access it via a mobile device. Yeah. So with that said, I think dive straight into Webflow and start with the basic example. So to start, I want us to use because of our so that it won't take so much time. I want us to use this part use fonts we are going to use for our project. I just want us to start with that right away. So we're using DM Sans and Space Grotesque. So I will show us how we can add Google fonts. Let's say you are a designer or you have a website that you are working on has a special fonts. For example, the font I want to use now, if I want to use it, I go to my typography here, it doesn't have that font. So to add a new font, you go to your left hand side of the screen here, click on you over on that Webflow logo, change it to this hamburger. You can click on it, go to project settings, and I'm going to add a new font here. Click on fonts, then select Google Fonts. Thankfully, it's Google Fonts, and I can just search for Space Grotesque, and here it is. I can add different variation of the fonts, add font, and I'm good to go. I also add DM Sans. DM Sans. Yeah. So I add different so different typefaces and we are good to so I go back to my workspace and you can start designing. Yeah, so this is the first this blank space, this is our body. If you're familiar or not familiar with HTML or what HTML looks like, so for every website that you see, what you see, what you interact with, the buttons you click on, the pictures you click on to expand, the form you fill, they are first HTML elements before you use CSS to style it. So HTML is just there. It's just there. Nothing fancy about it. It's just a basic font. Nothing fancy. The CSS is what they use to style the beautiful website that you see every now and then. So for this particular website, now what we are seeing is just the body, just like blank HTML space, and this is what your website looks. Now, to start with, I'm going to start with each part of the layout that we can use to construct or build our website. And the first element I'm going to talk about is the section. Now, as we have here, if you can see my screen, if I can zoom it, sorry, yeah, I'm trying to zoom in so that we can see what I have here. If you can see my screen, you see that just from their description and the icon, you see that the section has this two different layouts, one at the top, one under. The container is more like a box that just fill every part of the screen with padding on the space on the left and the right side, while the grid is more like I want to arrange things. Maybe I have like 4 different cards on my screen. You can see the grid and the column. Just as this, just as the icon symbolizes, that's what they stand for. And I'm going to take them one after the other and use them as an example. So I'm going to click on section. So now I'm dragging this part this section onto my screen now. As you can see, I have this here. A quick example of this and how this works is, let's say you have this hero section. For example, look at our example again. We can call all of this a section of our screen. So you can just say, I want to build the hero section. I want to build the header. That's like new section. I want to build the hero section. I want to build the contact us. Different parts of the page. Let me just another example. Look at this, for example. This is a much this is a bigger example. Look at this. Look at this hero section where you have the description, you have the images, then you have how can we help you. That's another section. Then we have these icons, then you have these what they do and everything. So those are an example of section. So if you are building that in Webflow,
I don't think you can see the screen.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, let me create another. Maybe I should just go to a website. Which website can I go to? I'm sorry. Okay. Let me use this example. No. I'm trying to use the website, just a random website to explain. Yes, this is a perfect example. Look at this first part of the screen. I'm sorry for that. This is the section, for example, where we have the Premier League. This is sections. You say if you want to build this part of the screen now, it's a section. Then you go to the next one. This trending now, it's another section. This episode, just on and on and on like that. So it's used to segmentize or divide your screen, whatever you want to do into different parts of this. So this is an example of a section. The next one is container. So the way I go about my design is I use the container first, then I put section inside the container. And I'm going to give us an example now. So if I drag my container into the blank space, you will see that by default it has this padding. Can you see it? It has this padding. That's by default. I'm trying to highlight it so that we can. Yeah. Okay. I just drag it into section. Now, by default, that's this padding, and that is just like default padding Webflow. But we can adjust the padding, and that also take us quickly into example of the spacing that we have at the now. By hovering on the padding, can you see that? Look at the margin. Look at the padding it has. So it has margin top, that's 0 margin top and 0 margin bottom, and the margin on the left is 0. But we can adjust it here and say we can give it padding. Can you say 50, 49, whatever it is? We can just adjust the padding to give it the required space that we want.
Yeah,
So
Isaac, Isaac, is it okay to ask if do you think the idea of padding is and margin is something, you know, like you said, is natural to you? Is this something we should share? Like maybe for instance, Pelumi, since you are not, it's not natural to you. What do you think? Should
Okay, I
the
can.
idea of margin and padding?
Okay, I can go into Figma to also explain what margin and padding means, if that is fine. You can quickly take a detour to do
Yeah,
that.
just a very quick one. Yeah.
All right, all right. So look at this container that I have here. I'm sorry, I'm making a lot of assumption. Look at the container we have here. Let's imagine this particular container as our website or as a blank page we have. Now, we want to put different things inside. Now, I'm putting a section inside this particular container. So I'm going to put another section here. And let me change the color of this section. Now, then I'll put another section inside. Maybe I should divide that into two. Now, yeah, let me change the color. Let me change the color. I'm sorry, apologies for my word color combinations. This is too bright. Yeah. So now this particular red rectangle now, the space here, this particular red rectangle, the space around it, the space outside, like okay, this space around it. So if I apply padding to this, say this my body now, let's say this rectangle, this first rectangle that I'm over now, if I apply padding to it and I say I want it to give me 50 what's my text? So I say I want 50 pixels for the top,
Isaac,
yes.
I want to I want to confirm if this analogy is correct.
Okay.
My body is an object,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
The padding is the space between my flesh and my bone. The margin is the space between my flesh and my cloth.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone just let that sink in.
Yeah.
Listen to what Isaac is about to explain.
I think yeah, that's like that's just
Yeah. So your body is an object. The padding, if I say padding 10, so that means the space between your flesh and the bone. So padding goes inside, margin goes outside. Isaac, I think that so you can continue and finish up.
Yeah, I can just continue. I think that's like a very straightforward example. And now instead of just going through that example, I have another example here that I just remember that Figma was something that is even easier to work with. So look at this frame that I have here. Let me add a color to my background and add red here. So now look at the space around it. Let me just increase the space to like say 60, 60, 60, 60. That space I added around it, this space, that's the padding. So I say I want more space. I want more white space. I want the content inside my container to be this green content. I don't want it to touch the edges of my box. So I don't want it to breathe. And we see that this is applicable everywhere when we are designing or when we see websites have this space around. And it's an analogy of okay, your bone, for example, is not touching your flesh. I mean, like, or your muscle and your flesh. I mean, the muscle and flesh now, the muscle in between your body, I mean the outside body flesh and the bone. I'm sorry, I'm not saying, but I mean get the drill. Your flesh, your muscle, and the muscle is more like the padding that is not allowing your flesh to touch your bone. So now this that's the padding. Now if I want to add margin now, for example, let me add another container to this. Now the space between both of them, these two elements, the margin. So if I want to increase the margin here, I can just say increase it. Can you say that's the margin? So I'm giving it margin top. Let's say I'm applying it to this particular object. I'm saying that the objects around you, say give them this level of space or give them this amount of space. That's margin. So I hope that is clear. If you need further expansion, please let me know. You can drop it in the comments box and we can treat that.
Isaac,
So
we'll leave it to God. Just carry on. I think it's right.
all right. Okay, so after that, so we have section, we've seen container. Container is like I explained, container is more like, you can see it as the first, see it as the house, just like as the name implies, a container. So you can have different things inside your container. You can have your image in your container, you can have your text in your container, you can have a section in your container. Now we have grid. Now grid on the other hand is let me drop it here. As you can see, you have 4 different sections here. So let's say for this particular grid, I want to put text here. I want to put text in this particular. So if I can open it up, so I want to put I can yeah, for this particular grid now. These are layouts. That's one important part I should put in. So you can have different sections, different things in your grid. You can have text in it, you can have image here, you can have description here, you can have button here, just depending on how you want to structure your page. Then we have column. Column on the other hand is depending, it's okay, column is vertical layout. You want to divide your screen into, yeah, I'm right, vertical. You want to divide your screen into 4 different parts depending on what you want to do, 3 different parts. And we have already made custom made template here by Webflow. We have the two column, we have the 3 column, we have the 4 columns, depending on what you want to do. You have, and you can adjust the size, so depending on how flexible you want your column to be. These are like really already made templates, already made layouts that Webflow already made for us to make our work easy. Then we have the div block. Div block, for example, is, now I have my column, I have my section, I have my container. Where do something like in terms of hierarchy, where do something like, say you want to add an image to your website, or want to add a font, for example, a description, where does it live? So in terms of hierarchy and there's accessibility standard and where website is built, I think one of the right way of arrangement, and also to ensure that your code is readable when you are designing or when you are coding, is you have say section first. Maybe the section live your container, then you can have your div live in the, before you put your div, your div is a block, before you add your something like your fonts, or something like your image or your text. And this is advisable because it also makes the structure of what you are doing, makes it easier. Let me just make an example of this. Look at this last column that we have here. I want to put a div inside of it to make it easy. So I put a div, I drag it here, and I want to add my text into this. So I come here, I click on add button, I go into my typography, and I can click on my text and bring it in here. Just drag and drop. Can you see the hierarchy that I have here? So the first thing I have is what is a column. I have the two-dimensional column, and in my first part of my column here, what do I have the font, and this other part of the column I can have, say, I can have the button, just as an example. So look at the button that I have here. So I have my text here, and I have my button on the other side, just to show an example of how you can structure the elements or the layouts of our screen. So we have the layouts, we have the basic I've already talked about the div block, then the list. The list is, say you want to list an item, say you have other listing on other listing. Just so other listing is when you have, like, in order particular suggestion, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then on other you have this bullet points, and you can style it bullet or no bullet depending on how you want it. So if you want to put something here, you can say, let me drag this header that I have here, for example. So I can just bring this header here, put it in my non-list item cannot be placed in a list. I'm trying to put it here. Let me just put paragraph. Sorry, we're going to come to this later so that it will not delay us. But once you list your item, you can use this list to list it. And look at, for example, I'm typing here, and this is an example of what we can use to describe our list. All right. So after this, we have the heading. I've talked about the So this is an example of the heading now. For example, the text. So I should also mention that for designers, this may be straightforward. For non-designers, if when you want to structure the text on your website, for example, and if you look at, let me use the example I used earlier, and you see that you have different types of text. Look at this trending now, for example. The size of this trending now is different from this description of this snake in the grass. So you have different text sizes depending on what you are trying to communicate for your website. So you have the header, you have the subheader, you have the description, you have the paragraph. You agree with me that you have different sizes. So, and of course, we are going to style all of this, but we'll go to that later. So we have header, we have paragraph. Let me drop my paragraph here. And by default, you have dummy text. Inside the paragraph, you can style it to look at exactly what you want. We have a button. I already dragged the button. We have link that you can link to another page. You can style it. If you go to here, you can add the URL, maybe add another website. Also add a link in your website. Say you want it to go to another part of the website. You can choose a page, but you only have home here. You can add your email, make it open your email. You can add a phone number to it, depending on what you want to do. Really versatile line. You can do anything. You have block quotes. That you can also style to your specification. We have this rich text. You have different type of. You have text like header and text, header and description. This header that you can style. You see here. Look at the description on my left here. Let me zoom out. You see we have heading 2, we have paragraph, we have heading 4, different sizes of our headers. And this is a perfect example of the header and the paragraph that I was trying to say earlier. Okay, so we have all of these. You have the header, we have the link, you have the text, you have block quotes, and we have image is the last one I'm going to talk about before we just dive deep. So if I add an image here, you can just choose an image. Let's say drop a file. You already have it on your website, and just come here and add an image to your website. Yeah. So there we go. So you can now style it. You can change the height. You can change it depending on how you want this to look on your website. So, do you have any question before we continue? All right. So in the absence,
that's a good one. Let me check the comments if there are any questions. So far, everyone has been. I don't think there has any been comment, but I mean, we could make sure. Hello, everyone. Are there questions so far? Well, I'm sure there are. So, Oyanga has joined us. We have some honorable people in our midst. Daniel Alpha, Daniel Billo.
Yes, sir. I'm waiting.
All's good now. Yeah, with us in the market. Well done. Okay, Talkat was there from the beginning. Talkat Alpha, is the thing making sense? What do you think?
Hi, yes, it is. I mean, I might have to rewatch the video, but yes, it is making sense.
All right, cool. So great. I trust Amara. Amara has loaded us with questions. So Amara's question for me will be from using it. Oh, Amara, what do you mean by that? Can you clarify? What do you mean by questions for you will be from using it?
I mean, when I actually make use of it, I think the questions will come out then, because now I'm trying to understand the whole. There's a lot of properties.
I agree.
There's lot to look at.
I agree, Anamara. I think you were learning some form of programming now. Was it you?
Yes, no, I get all the concepts he's mentioning, but working on a different kind of interface is different. This one
It's one thing to watch, it's
HTML.
another thing to actually try it out.
Yes.
You're right. Nice. No, Wala. I mean, this is a series, so you can always come back with questions next week. You get?
Oh yeah.
And last is Kokri. Kokri said, can you select a specific frame size to work with, just like we do on Figma, instead of using the default 1064? That's a good question. Can you respond to that, Isaac?
Yes, look at the top section of my screen. You can follow my cursor. Can you see it? Where we have this web desktop, we have the tablets, we have have the mobile.
How do we change it? How do you change the 1064 if I want
So
to
you can
change
just click on it. You can click on it and say, give me a larger screen size.
1440 is a standard one, I think. That's for C1440.
Yes, you add large breakpoints and say,
nice.
So you can create that. You can add.
So Tunde confirmed that answers your question. Tunde, are we good? Then Tunde asks another question. It says, can you add text without placing a dev block first? Div is div. Tunde is div. div. So it's div block.
Yes.
So,
okay, go ahead, please.
Isaac, can we add the text without div? Is that possible?
Yes, you can. You can. For example, let me delete everything I have here. Let me delete.
Don't delete. I beg.
No, I just want to. Let me just create. For example, now let me click on the body. So look at my navigator here. Let me zoom in so that we can all see. Look at my navigator here. Can you see we have body, section, container? Can you just look at this to arrange it? So you can definitely add your text to the body. Let's say go to let me use the paragraph for my header here. I can just drag it here.
Okay. But is it like best practice to put div first? Is it like an advice?
Yes, so best practice. It even makes, so what it does is that when you go through, like say you have a section first, then you put a div inside your section, then you put header. It makes it easier for you to follow what you are designing.
Cool.
You guys imagine that you have a big website, you have a page for I was showing this for example. Now look at, we are adding different parts, different sections. Look at you are building a website like this, for example. You're going to have different images and everything. How do you arrange it? Say you want to debug, I want to change a particular text size. It is easy for you that you can even rename it. So you get this section, for example, rename it so you can go there and say, okay, this is where this particular section is, and you can go there and edit it.
Makes sense. And he actually responds and says my question has been answered. So thanks for that feedback, Tunde. Next, I like how the questions are trooping in. Can we get to use the icons we want? And is it flexible like Figma where you can use plugins? That's a good one.
Oh, yes. You can use the icons you want. You can add icons. You can add icons as flexible. And there are plugins too. There are plugins. Oh, wow. Yes.
Do they work like Figma where we just right click, install plugin?
No, you have where you install them. You can install, their Webflow. Let me just
no problem. It's fine. I'm sure you had plans to show us this thing, so it's okay when you get them and show us.
Yeah, so like
it's okay.
So you have plugins and like different. Can you see scroll bar? We have sliders. We have CMS. So depending on what you want.
I think you should give an assignment at the end where everybody basically does the most basic, silly thing, maybe as blank, as empty as this. And I'm sure you'll be surprised how many people will actually explore. That's that. Thank you very much. Next question. Can you adjust the sizes of your H1 text? Is your H1 text changeable?
Yes, you can. So for the next class, we are going to go deeper into having like a design system that is reusable. So for example, let me just give this as an example. Let me just use an example now. Look at this H1 that we have here. This is our H1. So I can give it a class. I can give it a class of my, say, header. Look at my cursor. So I can give it this header of that's the top right corner of the screen. I can give it a header of, say, header 1. I want to create the header. You can now go into the styling proper. Remember, we added our fonts.
Are there follow com headers? Isaac?
Yes, they are follow com header. That's the size.
You can also create. Okay, nice.
So you can increase the header to like say 60, change the height to say 100%. Yeah, depending
Nice.
on what you want in the color. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Isaac. So that's Faithful Boy. Next question. Temitope said, I may not have been following, but what's the difference between div and container? Well, but what I will say is before you answer this, Isaac, along with giving a short assignment at the end, I think you should also just share one basic document, not a very long article, an article that just talks about the simple, like these basic things that that you must know for
Okay.
for a non-developer, And I think Pelumi might be more, it might be help. Pelumi might easily answer that because I feel Isaac, someone like you already have knowledge of programming, so it's coming from a perspective of someone who doesn't know what a div. You keep saying H1 as if the reason why I think everyone should know H1 is if you use Word documents, Google Docs, you should know what headers are. But things like div, style, class, I don't think these are things anyone knows. We should know fonts, we should know weights. Those things were already on Figma normally. But things like div, so maybe later just help us find one very simplified article that we can read and do. But you can respond to this if you have a very simple answer. Div versus container. What's the difference?
Okay. I just as the name implies, you can just use it. So container can be like where your content lives, and think of div as a division. Now, this is an example of a container. Now, this is a container that we have here on our screen, and you can put div inside your container and now put content inside your div. So in terms of hierarchy, the container comes from, just look at it as like a container, like a what is a tank, like a tank, like all those GP tanks that we have around. That's like a container, but the water cannot be on its own. So water needs to live inside the container. So you build the DP tank first. That's a container. Then you put your water inside. So now you can have different segments inside your container, and that's where your div comes in. So your div helps you segmentize or compartmentalize your container. So you can have different div blocks or different divisions inside. Can you look at this? This is my div block. I can add more. Where is div again? I can add more divs inside my container. Then I can put my text inside the div. So in terms of hierarchy, it's a container first, followed by the div block that we have here, then our header. So that's how I answer the question.
Can I add to that?
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah. So containers and div. So like container is from divs because a container is a div block, basically. But a container is a structured div block. It helps keeps your content centered. So a container has predefined styles. Maybe you set a particular margin, or you set a particular padding. It help you keep your content, especially when you have like the normal procedure you follow is you have a section, you have your container, and then you now have numerous div blocks inside that will help you organize your content inside the container. So a div block, you can freely explore, you can change the background color, you can do anything you like with div block. But that container would help you keep all that content in the middle. You get it's still a div block, but it has like predefined styles to it.
Yeah. Thank you. That's like more. So just like a practical example of what you just said now. Look at I'm clicking on this div block, for example, now. So I can change the form, I can add padding to it. Look at the way I'm adding the padding to it, padding on all sides. I can add this padding, I can change the background color. Let me change the background color here and say I want to add so this is a div. So it's flexible. You can change the form and every other your content just lives inside of it.
Yeah, I think that's all the questions. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we've not gone too far, but I think you can do. But I would like you to also be mindful of time. This is a series. Anywhere we stop this week, I'm sure we can always pick up. So the moment fatigue sets in, let's know. Pelumi, be mindful of time and let's carry on. Well done, everyone.
Yeah.
All right.
I think, Isaac, we just have to move to I think this is the last part we have to explain. I think before our time goes is the right side.
Okay. So I stop sharing so I can share, or You want me to take the right side?
Yeah, let me just share so that I can.
Yeah.
That.
All right.
Okay. Can you guys see my screen? Can just confirm.
Pelumi, we are seeing your Google Meet now.
Okay, I'm just confirming you can see my screen. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Isaac has explained most of what we have here in terms of elements and stuff. So another fundamental part of Webflow is styling. And you can access your styling here. If I hover, you see this is where you have your styles, you have your element settings. Here you can manage your styles or classes that you've created and interactions. So let's just play around. So let's say we have a section. I just drop this section here. The shortcuts you can use is Control E or Command E to find anything you want to add. So let's say I want to add rich text. So I've added the rich text element inside here. So so now we have the first thing we have in our styling is layout. So with layout, you have inline, you have flex box, you have grids, you have sorry, this is inline. This is what is this? This is just like a normal how do I put it? It just flows the way you put it. This one is inline, and then this for like text, and this is if you want to hide that particular layout. So right now this is this way. So let me add another element inside here so that we can what should I have? Let me add a button. So let me put this in a big block so that we can easily manage all that content. So you can also control the structure of your elements from the navigator panel. You can stick it to the right so you can always see it. So now I'm going to move this element inside the div block like that, just like that, and I drag. So now these elements are in the hierarchy here at the bottom, in case you don't have this string here. So now we have the div block. So now, like we said before, div block is where you can experiment, you can add so many custom styling or whatsoever. So we have two elements inside div block. We have the rich text and we have the button. This is the current display, and now we're going to change to Flexbox. Flexbox is similar to auto layout in Figma. So I've changed to Flexbox now. As you can see, it's on horizontal. So the rich text block is on the left, and this is on the right. And you can adjust the alignment, whether it's going to stay at the top, whether you want the elements to align in the center, align at the bottom, you want it to stretch from top to bottom, or baseline. Yeah. So that's how so you can manage the alignment there. You can also manage how you want to justify the content, maybe left, center. We find this in some other useful content. So you can also change the space between the elements. So like for here, let me say 100 pixels. You can see this space here is what you have as 100 pixels, and here is locked. So whether for columns and either is for a row. So and you can also change the direction of the flex box. Now it is on horizontal, so it is the direction is horizontal. You can change it to vertical. The direction is now vertical, and remember I said you can play around the alignment. So at the moment it's in center, and change to left, and change it to right, stretch, and stuff like that. So that's that about Flexbox. Also, you can also make it a grid. So grid allows you to place items within rows and columns, and you can specify how you want your content to be. So now you have this is a grid with 2 rows and 2 columns. So you can also manage and add columns here. You can add another column. So we have 3 columns, we have 4 columns, like that, like that, like that. And you can place elements inside those different areas, and everything will be structured in that way. This is usually very good when maybe you're creating cards. You're creating cards and you want them to be structured in a particular, maybe 3 in a row, or I'm sure you've seen in all these e-commerce websites where you have maybe like Jumia. Let me open Jumia's website. Yeah. So like Jumia now, the way this thing is structured, the way you have this thing structured here, you want to use a grid, very perfect for this kind of layout. You just create this one card, copy and paste, and it will automatically fill up the spaces. So in this one, you have 1, 2, 3, you have 6 columns, 1 row. Same thing here. You want to use a grid for all these kind of layouts where you have multiple kind of the same kind of stuff you get. While you want to use flexbox, maybe you just want to have like your normal hero section, left, right, and stuff like that. So that's where you most likely want to be using flexbox. But if you want to have repeated elements like this, you would want to employ grids. So if I close the settings here and I copy and paste, watch how the grid works. So if I copy this, Control C, and I paste, it takes up the next area. Paste again, paste again, paste again. So it fills up that space automatically, and then it just makes your content arranged in that predefined column or row settings that you've set. So if you want to edit it, you see based on the element that you're on, you see it here. You see this icon here. You can click on it. And you can edit the grid. You can edit the space between the grid elements, between the rows. You can change the direction, whether it's row or column that it fills in accordingly. If you want it to go row by row, it will go this way from left to right. But if you want it, from left to right. But if it's column, it will go up, down, up, down, up, down, like that, like that. So, and like I said, you can add and remove rows. So, also you can, the same settings you have with Flexbox, you can adjust the alignment for the elements inside. I'm aligning them down, stretch, center, that kind of stuff. So you can align them different and apply to all the elements inside those areas in your grid. Also, you distribute to content starts. Maybe you want to justify, maybe to stretch or whatever. So depending on your content inside, you see how this works. So then inline. So inline is just basic. It's inline means all the elements will follow that same line. So take for example this button. This one now takes up the entire width, so it moves to the next line, and then the buttons. So if I continue filling, it's just going to keep staying on that line. And then to move to the next line once it passes that stuff, you get. So that's how the line works basically. You mostly want to use that when you have buttons and maybe you have a secondary and primary button. You have a secondary and primary button, and you want to set together, so you can use inline. And then this one is used to set default line height or size for elements. So if it passes that, it will wrap. Let's use for this one. I have to create. Let me add a text doc. Let's add a paragraph. So if you add this, it will make it fixed, it will like wrap the entire element as it is in that way. So this is usually very useful when sometimes when you are doing animations and you want to animate text, you need to use inline for the text itself to create some special animations and stuff. And then you can also hide elements. In this case, you can just hide the element. You don't have to delete it. Maybe okay, you want it to show on mobile, you don't want it to show on mobile, that kind of stuff. You just hide the element. It's still there. It's the same way on Figma where you can hide, like pass through, where you hide the pass through. So you just hide it. It's there, but it's not there. You get. So that's that about layout. So spacing, like Isaac has talked about, you have your padding, you have your margin. Margin is the one outside, padding is the one inside. So you can adjust those depending on what you have in your design. And also, yeah, so and then there's sizing too. So you can set specific width and specific height, minimum width, minimum height, maximum width, and maximum height for your elements. And there are different units that you can use to specify for all your styling. Same thing here, you have different units. You have pixels, you can specify in percentages of a parent element. You can, what is this? I usually use CH, I've forgotten what it means. Then you can specify in M and rem. These two are quite similar in terms of your view width and your view height. So your view width is like basically the width of that particular screen. Your view height is the height of, in terms of like your viewport, the height. And then rem and m are specific. There are units that use that. They are using code. So there's an argument that you should always use rem and m because pixel is not responsive in terms of your design. So if I'm using pixels and I'm moving between these screens, they would not be very responsive. So I just tick, but with rem or m, your content will scale according based on your screen size. So we're going to talk about all those later when we're actually jumping into like designs. So like I said, you can set a width for this. Let's set this to, let's say 100 pixels. I see. Now this your paragraph, it won't go past this 100 pixels. It's defined as this. And then you can also set a minimum width that, okay, this is the minimum that this stuff should be. But then it can scale past that, you get. So I can set the minimum to this. So that means that let me set this to 700 pixels. So if I go to this screen size, which is 320, can you see? It's going to take that. I've set it that okay, the minimum width must be 700 pixels. So regardless of the screen size, it cannot go. This content will not go below 700 pixels. You get, regardless of the screen size. So and then maximum width too is pretty much the opposite. So let me reset this. So maximum width. Let's say I want to set the maximum width to 100 pixels. No matter how large I want to go in the screen, it will not go past this 100 pixel when you are scaling. You get. So it's pretty much the opposite of minimum width and maximum. So the same thing applies to the height, applies to the minimum and maximum height. It won't go for minimum, it won't go lower than that. For maximum, it won't go higher than that. Also, sometimes when you have some content, they can overflow. Overflow in terms like in the sense that, let me set the minimum width for this to be 700. Now let's go to our mobile screen. You can see scaling is going past this, and you have an overflow. That means I can scroll horizontally outside the screen size. Normally, you don't want to have this. So in a very good case, if I set the overflow to hidden, sorry, to be for the div block. So if I set the div block to, let's say I want the width to be, let's say 100% of the view width. It's going to overflow because have this content here that is stretching outside. So what do I want to do if I don't want it to overflow? I just hide it. Overflow hidden. Can you see? I'm trying to scroll to the left, but I can't scroll to the left because I've hidden the overflow on the parent elements. You get. So that's that about sizing, and also for fill, for like images, you can set the fill to contain, to cover, to none, and to scale down depending on what you want. So, and then there's also positioning. We have 15 minutes. So there's also positioning. So this is we'll go in depth into this when we're actually designing in the next set of series. So you can set, so basic, the standard position settings for all your elements is static. You get, it's static, it's just going to be there. You can set an element to relative. The relative is similar to static, but it offers more positioning options in the terms that, let me give this a maximum now. Sorry, let me set this so that we can see. I set this maximum to 500 pixels. Now let me set this to relative. With static, I can't move this around. Get, but relative, I can move it. I can put it in a particular position. I can bring it down. I can pick it up. This is different from padding and margin. You get, this is the position. You get, this doesn't have to do with the content. This has to do with the position on the screen. So this is respective to the left side. This is respective to the top. This is respective to the right, and this is respective to the bottom. You get. So that's that about relative. It just offers you more positioning options than that static wouldn't give you. You get. So then there's absolute. So for absolute, absolute gives you the option to set it anywhere you want in a parent element, relative to a parent element. So how you want to use this is that you set the parent element to relative, and then that object or element that you want to position absolutely, like as the name implies, you set it to absolute. And now it is going to be absolute to the position of the div block, which is the parent element that you set it relative to. So this paragraph now, can move it anywhere I want. There are default positions that I can put it: top right, it will move to the top right, top left, bottom right, and stuff like that. Or you can position it anywhere. You can see the way it overlaps every other element. That is why it is called absolute. For relative, it's going to stay in that position that it is and just gives you more positioning options. You get. So then fixed makes your element fixed in the entire on that particular element. It's not going to move away from that part, even if you are scrolling or anything. It's just going to stay there. You find this maybe in your nav bars. You find some nav bars are sticky. Sorry, or like this stuff now is fixed. No matter where you're moving, this stuff is always going to be there, or this stuff. So you can use it for some particular elements to make them fixed. While sticky is going to stick it to that particular position until the user scrolls past that page. I'm sure you must have seen cases where maybe you are scrolling and then one part stays stationary while you are scrolling. Maybe a product description. I don't know, maybe Jumia has that kind of stuff. Okay, it doesn't. But in some cases, you see maybe the image will stay on the right. The element on the right will be scrollable while that element stays. That element has been set to position sticky. So until you now scroll past that section, that's when everything will now, the stickiness will now remove. You get. So we are going to find a way to apply all this positioning in, and you get to see it when we are actually like designing like a full landing page and stuff like that. So like Isaac also explained, the typography, you can add fonts. You can also add fonts from here if you don't want to come here, you can just click on add font, take you to that same page that it showed us earlier on. You can change the weight, you can change the size, the height, the color, alignment, you can add decoration. There are also more type options. You can change the letter spacing, the text indent. You can also the column, you can also capitalize. I'm making this capital, or okay, I want it to be first letter of each word to be capitalized, and then you want to make everything small letter, that kind of stuff too. And also the breaking, you can also set it to, this is a normal wrap based on the width I've said. You can change it to no wrap. That means you just want it to stretch. You should not wrap at all. There's pre-wrap, there's pre-line, and then there's break text, break the text. You get. So then you can also add shadows to your text. Just edit it or whatever, change whatever. Pretty much basic. Then you can add backgrounds. You can add backgrounds to elements. So let's say for this div block, I want to add an image. You can just upload an image, and I have an image here. So you can just upload an image, or you can add a gradient. And this is a linear gradient. You can add gradient, or you can add a color overlay there. And also you can add a default color. You can just change the color of the div block, change the opacity of the bikini, and yeah, and stuff. You can also add styles to your colors. Maybe I want to save this color. I just add it, save it as brown. Great. So you can easily just access it anywhere. Probably I want to my color now. You can see it saved there. Anywhere you have colors, it should just be saved and you can use it. So let's change it back to white. So, and also borders. Let me add another div block. You can, let me give this default. So we have this box here. So I can add, let me add the color to it so you can see it. So you can add a radius to it. Can you see the radius being applied? So you can add radius, you can change the style, you can add borders. So let me change the border. Can you see the border there? You can make it broken or more than that. You can change the width of the line of the borders, and then the color of the border too, stuff like that. So yeah, and you can also change, okay, I want it to just be top, I want it to be here, I want it to be here, I want it to be everywhere around, you get. So, and then there are also effects that you can add, blending, you can adjust the opacity of the entire element, you can add outlines, you can add box shadows, inside or outside. You can also perform transforms. That means you want to, you can scale it, whether in a 2D or 3D transform. You can also add transitions, filters, and stuff. You can also play around with your cursor. So that's that about the styling. Also, I think also mentioned here is where you can manage your classes, your style classes. So div block 2, let's say I've added predefined styles to this one now. Let me add another div block to this place here. So let me add another div block to this place. Now, if I want you to take the properties, if I want to take the properties of this div block, what I just need to do is come here to this selector and type in the name of that class, div block 2. And to apply all the properties that I've set for this div block to this other div block. Again, so from the colors to the width, every single property that I've changed in the normal properties is going to apply to that particular property. Again, so that's that about the styling. Here you can set settings for individual elements. Like for div blocks, you can set the tag. Is it a header? Is it a footer? Nav, main, section. You'd want to set all this for SEO reasons. because there's a way Google and all these search engines look at your website. This is what they use to pick certain things from your website. So you always want to specify all these tags. If you have a section, specify that it's a section. If it is a nav bar, specify that it's a nav bar. If it's a footer, specify that it's a footer. If it's a header, specify that it's a header, and stuff like that. So there's also your style manager. All the styles that you've created, can manage them, how it affects the page and the settings and stuff like that. You can rename it and stuff like that. And here is where you can manage interactions. You can set it whether it triggers on that element or it triggers on the page, on the entire page. So, and then there are different options. Maybe when you click on the element, when you hover on the element, you want a particular interaction to happen. When your mouse moves over the element, when you scroll into view or while scrolling into view. Also for page trigger, you can set for when the mouse moves into that viewport, while that page is scrolling, when the page loads, or when the page scrolls. You get. So all this we'll talk about in depth. Animation, how to create animations. Let me just create a simple one. Let's say I want to set mouse over. No. So let's set for this deep block. Maybe I want to, when I hover on the element, I want it to change the color. Or let me just add a custom. I want it to grow big when I hover it. So if I preview here, can you see that? When I hover, it will grow big. So that's that about interaction. So there are a lot more that you can do. That's just basic. Basically, your imagination is the only thing that I would say will stop you from being able to create animations in Webflow, and you don't need to know any form of code or anything to create animations in Webflow. So yeah, that is that about this section. And also, when you are done with your design, and probably you want to see it on a domain, you can publish it, and you can now copy the link and you can send it to anybody, and they can view your website. And you can also publish it to a custom domain. Maybe you have your own domain you want to put it on. You can also set that up. But basically, on the free version, you have to, it publishes on Webflow's own domain. And also on the paid version, you can also export your code. You can export your code and like the HTML assets, CSS, and JavaScript, all the assets that are used in your design. You can export them and give it to a developer or whatsoever. So, yeah, that's that about basically the interface that is Webflow. In our subsequent series, we would actually dive deep into creating the landing page or website or whatsoever using Webflow. You'll see how to use style guides, design systems. You see how to organize your elements in Webflow, how to properly name your elements and stuff like that to create the best experience for whoever it is that you are building for. So yeah, I don't know, is there any question? Is there any question? Does anyone have any question? Can one bring in a Figma design to develop on Webflow? No, you can't like bring in your Figma design tool. What you can do is from your Figma, you export your assets and you inspect basically the way your developer would. So you inspect the elements, you would add all the styles that you need that you've set in Webflow. In Figma, you can recreate those styles in Webflow to make your work easier. And then yeah, it's just mirror what you have in Figma on Webflow. So yeah, all right. So is there any other question before we call it a day or a night? Okay, so I'll take that as a no. So this is not the end. So this is not the end. We are still going to we still have more to share with you guys. We're going to, like Isaac showed us, we're going to actually build a landing page, build sections, we'll do interactions, animations, and stuff, so that you yourself you can like get to feel the capabilities of Webflow. Yeah. So yeah, that's all for today. Isaac, do you have any remarks?
And no, yeah, that's all. Maybe I should also add that Toby mentioned about doing an assessment. I'm thinking of sharing the Figma file for the next class with everybody. It's a free, it's an asset I find in the Figma community. So I can share it on the DYP group on WhatsApp, and we can all have a try it. Just see if you can, with everything we explained today, see if you can just get something started with it. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to use everything we did today, the font, the section, the div, and add the image. So you can just look at the Figma file, export the assets, and try to import into your Webflow and just try it for the next class. And for the next class, you can all try and design the website together.
Yeah. So you guys can just play around with it. Whatever questions you have, maybe you had an issue trying to do something, you can just save it to next week on Sunday. We'll have the next session, and then I'm sure that will be more. I'm sure that's what most of you guys will be looking out for, to see how you actually build web design using Webflow. So yeah, we'll see you guys next week Sunday. It's nice having you guys here. Do have an amazing night.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, boss. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.